Morning, Trainiacs. Just finishing up a Team Trainiac Zwift ride. Awesome turnout today. 145 people cruising around. We run Watopia. So you might have seen recently the pro triathlete Andrew Starkowitz has been popped for doping, but in my opinion with fairly questionable causes, reasons, circumstances. And it got me thinking, if it's that easy for him to get banned for a year and have to give back prize money for doping, how easy could it be for us to encounter that ill fate? So we went through that, and it's a lot easier than you think. I'll give you some tips. Alright, so here's what happened with Andrew Starkowitz, old Starky. Back in 2019, he became a little bit ill. The doctor that he was working with prescribed him a prescription to address the illness, and this was before several races. Now, Starkey, knowing that these were prohibited drugs, they needed a therapeutic use exemption, a TUE, we're going to talk about that a lot, he ended up applying for it and then going to race. Now, what happened was a lot of paperwork has to go through to get a therapeutic use exemption. He still continued to race. The exemption came back after the races. Now, he's in a situation where they've gone back and said, you raced without a therapeutic use exemption with banned substances. And because the therapeutic use exemption was denied due to the fact that there was an alternative medicine that could have been prescribed, he now has to pay back the winnings that he ended up accumulating in those several races. And take a look at his social media profile over the next few weeks. He might be putting out some sort of a statement about how it happened in his own words. I'm sure I'm paraphrasing and missing something a little bit, but that's kind of the understanding that I've got. Now, this begs the question, if it's that easy that you get sick, you get a prescription, and then all of a sudden you are doping, even though it's something that you can get a therapeutic use exemption for, I started thinking, what are all the things that we triathletes, us age groupers, are commonly doing that isn't acceptable? And when I started looking into it, there's a lot. And what I want to do is give you some guidelines about things that are very likely for you to happen, knowingly, unknowingly, but now that you know about them, you can at least deal with it in such a way that you won't be penalized. First thing, let's start off with prescription testosterone. This is a really, really common thing that is starting to be prescribed for particularly older adult men as we start getting close to 40 and older, especially endurance athletes who end up getting their hormones beat up. There was actually a study done of Ironman Kona athletes that showed more than half the athletes that were tested had suboptimal hormone levels. And my speculation is that this actually skews more good than the average population because these athletes are in Kona. They are a fair bit, resilient. They can get through some of these things and push through and still be functional. I think that it's very, very common for endurance athletes to have hormone issues. I myself have hormone issues. Now, the thing is that you can, yes, get testosterone prescribed. Just because it's prescribed doesn't mean that it is acceptable. You have to have a TUE, a therapeutic use exemption, that matches up with a doctor's prescription for this to be okay. So is it okay? It can be. Is it always okay? No. You have to jump through some hoops to make sure that when you're addressing your health and improving your hormones, you are doing so in a way that is approved. Next thing, B12. Yeah, well, it's not actually that B12 itself is banned. Thank goodness, because when I dig into a lot of friends and fellow athletes whose biomarkers I can review, B12 is something that is really commonly low in endurance athletes, particularly in female endurance athletes from what I've seen. So it's not actually the B12 that's banned, but what is banned is cobalt. And in a lot of B12 supplements, cobalt has trace amounts in it. So what you need to do is essentially look at the history of the company that's manufacturing it, see if there are traces of cobalt in the ingredient. And what we've got here is a situation where you have a supplement that a lot of people need that can often be tainted with something that is banned, and you might not know that you are actually ingesting it. How to deal with that? Look for companies who are banned substance-free certified and have a history of, well, essentially no history of showing tainted products. Next is inhalers. Inhalers, even if being used to treat asthma, are banned at all times. That is, unless you have a therapeutic use exemption, which you can get approved. But even at this, the amount that you can take is governed by USADA. What USADA says is that in order to calculate how many puffs you can have per day, you need to find the medication and dosage on your inhaler, then multiply it by the number of puffs per day that you have been prescribed. Then compare that to the dosage of WADA's permitted dosage range. As an example, albuterol is commonly delivered in dosages of 90 micrograms per actuation. You might see 90 mcgs per actuation or just 90 mcgs. This means you're getting 90 micrograms per puff. The WADA permitted dosage is 800 mcgs over 12 hours, which means you could use up to 8 puffs in 12 hours and still stay within the permitted dosage range. But my take on this is, what happens if you need more? Too bad, so sad, according to these rules. Next is fertility drugs and insulin. Yeah. Now, not all fertility drugs and insulin medications are banned, but they fall within the category of hormone and metabolic modulators, things that change your hormones and metabolism. A lot of these modulators are sold on bodybuilding websites under the headline SARMs, you might see. Now, those you absolutely do not want to take. When it comes to insulin, you can take it. Again, you need a therapeutic use exemption, which is the same for female athletes who are taking clomiphene for fertility purposes. You need a therapeutic use exemption for this as well. Next, donating blood. Now, donating blood, I'll say that is totally okay. But the act of putting blood in and out starts to end up running into some different areas. For example, donating blood, okay. If you're on dialysis, again, you need a therapeutic use exemption. If you are donating, say, plasma, like in my case, I have really rare blood. As a man, to have O negative blood, which is what I have, apparently I'm like 1 in 20,000. So there are actually companies here locally that pay a lot of money for my blood. I sold it during university. I was poor. But this is prohibited because the donor's own red blood cells, my blood, is taken out, they separate it from the plasma, put my red blood cells back in, and then it's mixed with other products to help put it in and assimilate it back with my body. Totally not okay. Now, I wasn't doing triathlon at the time, but I can tell you back when I was doing that I really never felt any sort of performance enhancement. It was something that I did for a few bucks, and because it was something that helped, I think it was helping mothers who lost a lot of blood in childbirth. I believe that was what I was helping with. It was like 15 years ago, I don't remember. Related to that is the next issue that is fairly common and becoming more common, vitamin IVs. Vitamin IVs are an alternative to taking oral medication. Oral medication, specifically with pills, with capsules, with liquid, it tends to get broken down by a lot of the stomach acids in the process of digestion. So the bioavailability of everything that you ingest from your daily vitamins isn't really as much as if you just put it straight into your system with a vitamin IV. Makes perfect sense, right? Yeah. And a lot of people have had great success with this. I think that this is particularly useful for endurance athletes who just about all of us have some sort of a gut or digestive problem because we spend so much time training and racing with as much as 80% of the blood supply that is meant to normally go to our stomach in our limbs, pumping our arms and legs as we are swimming, biking, running. So a lot of us have digestive problems, and you would think that a vitamin IV would be a good way to combat some of the issues with nutrient deficiency. Well, not so much. The simple act of getting an IV, particularly a vitamin IV, banned. Can't do it. Next is stimulants. Now there's a belief that if you take too many energy gels or too much Coke that has caffeine, or you're taking caffeine pills in a race and you get tested afterwards, they are going to test for an acceptable amount of caffeine. Now, I looked into the rules and I didn't see anything that specifically said this, and I found something that specifically said that this is not the case. It's really just a myth. But what I did find is that people who are being treated for ADHD with stimulants for additional focus, that there is another chance of problems and that you need a therapeutic use exemption. It's not just cool across the board. If you know more about the caffeine, of just like general caffeine, let me know in the description below, but I couldn't find much on that. Finally, the last thing, weed. Now, it kind of goes without saying that if you get tested for taking illegal drugs, you're probably not going to pass a blood test. The thing about it is that there's this massive gray area of some states and provinces in North America making it legal, others still have it as illegal. And with all of the benefits that athletes can derive, with lower inflammation, with lower stress hormones, with improved sleep, for recovery, like all of these things that do help a lot of people with hemp, CBD, and THC, it's very, very common that a lot of people are starting to look to these products. What USADA says about it, however, is that THC banned. And there's a lot of governing bodies that haven't yet really adopted any sort of policies on CBD. But the fact of the matter is that THC is still banned. Now, what happens is there's a lot of people that might try to go with a governing body that does allow CBD, but because it's such a new industry, there's a lot of CBD products that still contain trace amounts of THC. So it doesn't matter if you have a therapeutic use exemption, doesn't matter if you didn't know that it had THC in it. If you test positive for THC, you fail the blood test. Now, here's the thing to know about all of this as you're thinking about all of the things that you could potentially get in trouble for. Most of the time, the people that get tested are pros or people who win age groups, win overall races, are competing, and what they're taking or not taking makes a big determinant on things like prize money, like who qualifies for what, things like that. But for the vast majority of us triathletes, we aren't going to get blood tested. So I'm not saying that it's okay to go out and take performance-enhancing drugs. Very, very much not. What I'm saying is that don't let all of these, I think in some cases, little too stringent requirements sway you from taking care of your health. If you are somebody who is competing for overall performances and funding and things like that, you have to be very, very cautious of this, rightfully so. But if you're just a weekend warrior who wants to go into a race here or there, I would say you don't have to be nearly as worried about all of this and take care of your health first. So with all of that said, if you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below. And right over here, we got a video that I think this one is our most popular video that we get the biggest amount of positive feedback on. So check that one out, and later, Trainiacs.